Long live the king.
The most tragic villain in Disney history wasn't born evil, he was made that way, a shattered soul never given the chance to piece himself back together, until today. In this video, we're creating an alternate timeline where Scar faces his demons instead of surrendering to darkness. We'll explore how his intelligence and cunning, the same qualities that made him formidable, could transform him into the Pride Land's unexpected hero. His heart, like a cracked throne room floor, holds both destruction and potential. If you've ever wondered whether Mufasa's brother could find redemption, or how the Lion King's message might change with salvation instead of death, you're in exactly the right place. What if the most calculating villain in Disney history was just one nightmare away from becoming a hero, but we never got to see it? Scar isn't just a villain, he's a masterclass in calculated malevolence, a lion who used his superior intellect not to lead, but to deceive. But villains aren't born fully formed wearing black capes and twirling mustaches. They're created through a lifetime of small moments that harden into resentment. From the beginning, Scar lived in Mufasa's shadow as the smaller, weaker brother, while Mufasa possessed everything: the strength, the respect, the birthright to rule. All Scar had were his wits, which sharpened daily as his resentment deepened. During hunts, Mufasa's physical prowess earned lavish praise, while Scar's strategic thinking went unnoticed. When their father formally named Mufasa as heir, Scar stood in silence, another slight added to his growing collection. Remember how Scar speaks, each word precisely chosen, each plan meticulously crafted. That level of intelligence could have made him Mufasa's greatest advisor, a brilliant strategist who helped the Pride Lands flourish. Instead, his potential for greatness twisted inward, corrupted by years of being overlooked until his brilliant mind fixated on claiming the throne. Their brotherhood wasn't always defined by hatred. There must have been moments in their cubhood when they played together, when the competitive edge hadn't yet turned poisonous. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Each dismissal built upon the last until the brothers could barely stand in the same space without tension crackling between them. The gorge scene reveals Scar's terrifying nature in its purest form. He doesn't just kill Mufasa, he makes his brother believe he's coming to save him. He looks into Mufasa's desperate eyes, whispers, "Long live the king," with chilling satisfaction, then deliberately lets him fall. This calculated betrayal, where trust meets treachery, defines Scar more completely than any roaring declaration of villainy ever could. After seizing power, Scar's rule quickly reveals his fundamental misunderstanding of leadership. He allows the hyenas to overhunt, turning the lush Pride Lands into a barren wasteland. The lions starve, the herds leave, and still Scar refuses to accept his failures. His intelligence becomes his downfall. He sees the destruction he causes, but remains too proud to change course. When Simba returns, Scar's desperate attempts to maintain control lead to his ultimate defeat, cornered by the same hyenas he once commanded. But what if everything changed at that pivotal moment on the cliff? What if instead of satisfaction, Scar felt an immediate, crushing wave of remorse as he watched his brother fall? As night descended upon the Pride Lands, Scar's victory celebration took a terrifying turn. The same paws that had pushed Mufasa to his death now clutched desperately at twisted sheets, as nightmares turned the new king's sleep into a battleground. What if Mufasa's spirit didn't just guide Simba, but instead visited his brother night after night? The brother he betrayed didn't come with roars of vengeance, but something far more devastating: the quiet, persistent question, "What have you done to our kingdom, brother?" When Scar closed his eyes that first night as king, Mufasa was waiting for him in the dreamscape, standing silently at the edge of that eerily familiar cliff. Each night the visions intensified, leaving Scar gasping for air with the phantom sensation of falling that echoed his brother's final moments. His fur would be matted with cold sweat, his ears filled with the deafening silence of guilt that followed him even in waking hours. But wait, didn't Mufasa's ghost only appear to Simba in the original story? In our timeline, the spirit had other plans. While Simba found refuge in the jungle, Mufasa haunted his brother with spiritual journeys through the Pride Lands, revealing dried up watering holes, fleeing herds, and starving lionesses. The most chilling vision showed hyenas turning against Scar, tearing him apart in a cave of fire, just as they did in the original timeline. No matter where Scar hid himself to sleep, the royal den, small caves around Pride Rock, guarded chambers, Mufasa's presence penetrated every defense. His relentless haunting drove Scar toward greater cruelty at first. He issued harsher hunting quotas and punished questioning lionesses while dark circles formed beneath his bloodshot eyes. Meanwhile, Rafiki sensed the spiritual disturbance from his baobab tree. On moonlit nights, the old man drill mixed potions and read signs in the wind, secretly following the king, who would suddenly freeze mid-step and speak to invisible presences. The most powerful vision came during a terrible storm when Mufasa revealed an alternate past, one where the brothers ruled together, Mufasa's strength perfectly complemented by Scar's intelligence. Scar watched his alternate self laughing alongside his brother, respected and loved by all. He awoke with tears streaming down his face for the first time since cubhood. The torment soon manifested physically as Pride members whispered about their king's strange behavior. Most alarming was Scar's sleepwalking. Zazu reported seeing him dangerously close to Pride Rock's edge while unconscious. Night after night, Scar would unconsciously travel to the gorge where Mufasa died, standing exactly where his brother had fallen, looking up with an expression of pure anguish, as if reliving the betrayal from the victim's perspective. By day, the Pride watched their king deteriorate, but something far more mysterious began happening under the cover of darkness. Could the villain who destroyed the Pride lands also be the one secretly working to save them? The most unexpected drought hero wasn't wearing a crown or roaring orders, but slinking through shadows with dirt-covered paws that once pushed a king to his death. As the drought transformed the once lush savanna into a barren wasteland, Scar maintained two faces. During daylight, he ruled with cruel indifference, increasing hunting quotas despite dwindling herds and threatening any lioness who failed to meet them. But when darkness fell, he transformed into the kingdom's hidden savior. After ensuring the Pride and hyenas were asleep, Scar would slip away from Pride Rock, his black mane becoming one with the night. His earlier sleepwalking episodes provided perfect cover for these purposeful journeys. Growing up as the second prince while Mufasa attended royal duties, Scar had discovered hidden springs and underground water sources throughout the territory that remained untapped during the drought. Behind a wall of thorny acacia near the eastern border, he found a small spring still bubbling with clean water. His royal paws, unsuited for labor, dug channels to direct water toward the cubs' area. When the lionesses discovered the mysterious stream, Sarabi insisted it wasn't there yesterday, while another suggested perhaps the great king sent us a blessing. Like a hidden river sustaining a cracked desert surface, Scar's nocturnal work breathed life back into the dying ecosystem. He redirected meager rainwater by strategically moving rocks in dried riverbeds, nourishing dying acacia trees that prevented soil erosion and provided crucial shade. Small patches of green emerged in the brown landscape, attracting insects and small mammals, which in turn brought predators enough sustenance to survive. Maintaining his dual identity grew challenging. The hyenas noticed subtle changes, Scar dismissing them each night, claiming he needed solitude. Shenzi, always perceptive, spotted the mud caking his paws each morning. "You're up to something," she accused, blocking his path. "The boys don't see it, but I do. You've changed. Mind your place," Scar snarled, momentarily reclaiming his tyrant persona. "Question me again, and you'll find yourself hunting for scraps beyond the Outlands." His most dangerous moment came when Zazu spotted him creating a small pool near the western border. The hornbill nearly crashed mid-flight at the sight of the Tyrant King arranging stones with such care. Their eyes locked in silent understanding before Zazu nodded and flew away, keeping the secret. Week by week, Scar's intricate network of channels and catchments revived the Pride lands while he maintained his cruel facade by day. His paws worked tirelessly through the night as patches of savanna slowly returned to life. Those small patches of returning grass became the backdrop for a confrontation that would redefine everything the Pride Lands stood for. But what happens when the rightful heir returns seeking vengeance, only to discover his villain has been fighting a different battle? The day Simba's roar echoed across the savannah wasn't just the return of a king, it was the moment Scar would have to choose between his throne and his truth. Simba's return caught Scar off guard. He had been so consumed with his secret restoration efforts that the sudden appearance of his nephew, the living ghost of Mufasa, sent a wave of panic through his thin frame. From the moment Simba's silhouette appeared on the horizon, Scar knew his carefully constructed double life was about to collapse. The nephew he had banished had grown into the spitting image of his father, carrying the same commanding presence that had once intimidated Scar into the shadows. As Pride Rock became the stage for their confrontation, Scar initially fell back on his old tactics. The gathered animals watched as he circled Simba, attempting to plant seeds of doubt about the young lion's absence during the kingdom's suffering. But something had changed in Scar. Mid-sentence, as he prepared to shift blame towards Simba, Scar's voice faltered. The months of nocturnal labor, of quiet atonement, of Mufasa's spiritual guidance, it all converged in this moment. "I can't," Scar whispered, his voice barely audible over the gathering storm clouds. Then louder, "I can't continue this lie." What followed shocked everyone present. Scar, the lion who had ruled through fear and manipulation, fell to the ground before Simba. His confession came pouring out. How he had orchestrated the stampede, how he had watched Mufasa fall to his death, and how that moment had eventually broken something inside him. But more surprisingly, he revealed his secret efforts to save the very kingdom he had nearly destroyed. "Every night while you all slept, I dug channels to bring water back to our lands," Scar explained, his voice growing stronger with each admission. The grass returning at the eastern borders, the small pool forming near the acacia grove. "That was me, guided by your father's spirit." The Pride's reaction fractured the unified front they had maintained during the drought. Saraba, who had suffered Scar's cruelty most directly, stood rigid with disbelief. Nala's eyes narrowed with suspicion. But others, like the younger lionesses who had noticed the mysterious improvements to the land, exchanged uncertain glances. Meanwhile, the hyenas slinked forward from the shadows, their expressions darkening with every word of Scar's confession. Their alliance had been built on Scar's promise of endless hunting rights, not on redemption stories. With each revelation, they inched closer, forming a menacing circle around both lions. "He betrayed us," Shenzi growled, her voice carrying to her increasingly agitated clan. "He's been helping them all along." Simba stood motionless throughout Scar's confession, his expression cycling through shock, fury, and confusion. The vengeance that had driven him home suddenly seemed hollow against this unexpected display of remorse. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of his father's authority. "I returned ready to take your life," Simba said, the wind picking up around Pride Rock. "I didn't come prepared for truth." After a long, tense silence broken only by the hyena's hungry growls, Simba made his judgment. Scar would live, but he could no longer call Pride Rock home. Banishment, not death, would be his punishment. The decision sent ripples of murmured dissent through the Pride, but no one challenged the rightful king's first decree. Banishment became Scar's salvation and his curse, forcing him to the shadowed edges of the kingdom he once ruled. But exile wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning of his most important chapter. From the outcropping of rocks at the border, Scar watched as greenery slowly reclaimed the land under Simba's rule. Small herds began returning to the recovering grasslands, and the skeletons that had littered the landscape were gradually buried beneath new growth. For the first time, Scar felt something unexpected while observing his nephew's success. Pride without jealousy. The hyenas beyond the borders harbored rage against both lions. "They feast while we starve," Shenzi snarled to her growing pack one night. "The young king ventures to the western ridge alone at dawn tomorrow, without his lionesses." Scar, prowling the borders during exile, froze at these words. The western ridge was perfect for ambush, steep on three sides with one easily blocked escape route. Scar knew their plan. He had taught them these tactics himself. The pack had grown, absorbing scavengers drawn by promises of a royal feast. That night, under storm-heavy skies, Scar paced his lonely den. He could disappear into the outlands. Simba had shown mercy, but that debt didn't demand risking his life. Yet each time he considered walking away, Mufasa's face appeared. Not the disappointed spirit, but his brother in life, strong and certain. "I'm not doing this for you," Scar whispered, "not entirely." Before dawn, Scar tracked the hyenas through familiar terrain. Their scent led to the gorge, the same ravine where Mufasa died. The cruel symmetry struck him. His darkness was born here. His redemption might end here too. Lightning flashed as Scar spotted Simba on the ridge, golden mane catching first light, unaware of dozens of eyes watching from hidden positions. Hyenas waited, ready. Perfect trap. Scar didn't hesitate. He leaped. His body arced through air. He landed between Simba and the pack. Thunder cracked. Recognition dawned in Simba's eyes. "Uncle?" The word barely escaped before the hyenas recovered from their surprise. "Run!" Scar roared, facing the wave of teeth and claws. "The eastern path is clear." Simba held his ground. "I won't leave you. This isn't your fight." Scar backed them toward a narrow ledge. "It's mine to finish." He fought desperately. Each slash across his body marked not defeat, but purpose. When lightning struck a dead tree, igniting dry brush, fire spread rapidly like Scar's burning need for redemption. The flames mirrored his past sins, now transformed into salvation's light. "Go now," he commanded Simba, turning to the hyenas with a calculating smile. "You want revenge? Then follow me." He darted between growing flames, drawing the vengeful pack deeper into the gorge, where fire consumed the drought-parched vegetation, just as his final act might consume the darkness of his past. What if the heart of the Lion King wasn't just about taking your place in the circle of life, but finding your way back to it after losing your way? In our reimagined Pride Land, Scar's journey doesn't end in flames of hatred, but in the fire of sacrifice that ultimately redeems him. The spot where he made his final stand now grows exceptionally green, like a phoenix rising from ashes, transformed through his remorse and atonement. During difficult decisions, Simba visits this place, seeking wisdom not just from his father above, but from the legacy of his uncle's transformation. This alternate Pride Lands teaches us that the circle of life offers second chances even to those who once tried to break it. But what if this message is what Disney was trying to tell us all along and we just weren't ready to hear it?